Hey everyone, welcome to Coding Vibes. This is the part 2 of open closed principle video in this series of solid principle. And in today's video, we'll be covering a couple of things. One is we will be looking at the code of the example that we took in previous video, and we will go over another example. Then later we will look into the benefits of open close principle. So let's get started. In the last video we took this example of payment processor, right? So what I have done, I have coded it over here. So we have a payment processor, and then it has a method process payment. Now we have three implementation to this payment processor, and it is the same example that we took in the last video. So we have three implementation: Bitcoin payment processor, credit card payment processor, and PayPal payment processor. So it's really very straightforward. In PayPal payment processor, you will be having implementation related to PayPal, the way PayPal processes a payment, right? And similarly, for credit card, you'll be having credit card related payment processing details, and then for Bitcoin, you'll be having Bitcoin specific code changes. So if you see, our payment processor class is open for extension and closed for modification. So if you want to add any new payment method, you can easily go ahead, extend this payment processor, right, and implement a new payment method without impacting any of the existing payment methods. So I hope this makes sense. Now let's go over another example where we have some code which is actually not following open close principle, and let's try to see how we can refactor the code so that it starts following open close principle. So let's go over the example. So we have an account class, and if you see, the essential things about this class is it stores the type of account, and then while initializing, you can give the type of account and balance. It will initialize this account, and later so typically we get some interest depending on the type of account, right? So that is what is this calculate interest method is all about. So for the type saving, assuming that it's just a assumption, right, that saving accounts has a 5% interest rate, so it calculates interest with a 5% interest rate. And similarly, let's say for current account, we don't have any interest. What's the problem over here, right? So let's say tomorrow you have another type of account, let's say business account. So if you have to incorporate for business account, you'll come to this calculate interest method, you'll write another, let's say LSIP class, right? And then you will be having implementation or specific to business account. Now this is where we are violating open close principle, right? This is the entity, software entity, this method, and while implementing a new feature of business type account, we are making change into the existing code base, right, which can be error prone, right, or which at least would require a rigorous testing of this entire method, right? So let's try to see how we can make this particular class follow open close principle. So as we discussed in the last video, right, what we can do is, let's say we will try to have this account class as is, right, and then have this account class as base entity with minimal details, right? So this, let's say this account class can have type and balance, right? And then this calculate interest, let's just say we have another class saving account, and then what it does is it extends account, right? And then let's say saving account, so it's just like I'm calling the constructor of base class so that these values can be initialized. All right, so this calculate interest in base class would have let's say default implementation. So let's say for now the default implementation is to not return any interest in saving account. We have created the saving account, and we can override. And similarly, let's say we want to have another class which is current account, which extends the account base class, and then these two variables would be initialized, right? Now given for current account we don't give any interest, right? So we don't really have to implement the calculate interest method, right? Because it would be taken care from this place. So whenever you will call calculate interest using base class, it will return you the 0, and I mean it will call the parent method and it will return you a 0 interest, right? Similarly, we were talking about business account, right? So let's say there is a new class business, let it extend the account, and then the same thing, right? Business account, it will have type and then balance. We can override the interest method over here. So let's say we want to give a 7% interest. So what we can do, balance into 0.7. So I hope this is making sense. Right now, if you see, we can have any number of any type of bank account, and then this is open for extension, right? You don't really have to make changes to calculate method anywhere. Depending on the requirement, you can create account specific calculate interest method, right? So this is about the examples. There is one more very basic thing. Actually, when you have this implementation specific to a bank account, you may want to remove the type, given you know that this is a business account. So for simplicity, you can even remove this type method, which is not really needed. This is all about the examples that I wanted to discuss. Next, we will be discussing about the benefits of open closed principle. I've listed down the benefits of open closed principle. Let's go over them one by one. पहला जो बेनिफिट है इज़ अबाउट मेंटेनेबिलिटी, एंड मैंने कुछ थियरी लिख रखी है यहाँ पे, बट उसका क्रक्स ये है कि वेन एवर आर कोड इज़ फॉलोइंग OCP, राइट, हम एसेंशली करते क्या हैं, हमारा जो कोड होता है इट रिमेन्स अनचेंज्ड व्हेन न्यू फीचर्स आर एडेड, राइट. और इससे क्या होता है, इससे रिड्यूस होती है रिस्क ऑफ इंट्रोड्यूसिंग बग्स और अनइंटेंडेड साइड इफ़ेक्ट्स इन एग्जिस्टिंग फंक्शनैलिटी. एंड ये अचीव करके what essentially we are doing, we are making our code base easily maintain, like we can easy, the maintainability over the time becomes easy. So this is about the maintainability, and which should be very clear, right? The examples that we took about be it about the account one or the payment processor, if you see, whenever we were adding new features, it was altogether a new class or new code. We were not impacting the existing feature, right? So this is about the maintainability. And then flexibility is really a good point. So whenever you follow OCP, given the new features that we add is via extension instead of modification, this promotes the flexibility in software. So given we are doing everything via extension, so our software is very flexible to adapt to new changes, right, or add a new feature. And then third point is about scalability, which is really very important. So given OCP ensures that we don't modify the existing code base, right, making software more scalable. Why? क्योंकि अगर कोई भी नया रिक्वायरमेंट आता है या हमारा सिस्टम जैसे इवॉल्व कर रहा है, उसकी वजह से कोई नई रिक्वायरमेंट आती है या नया फीचर का रिक्वायरमेंट आता है, द कोड बेस कैन ईजिली एकोमोडेट दिस चेंजेस, राइट. दैट मीन्स कि हमें बहुत ज़्यादा चीज़ें चेंज नहीं करनी पड़ेंगी, तो स्केल करना would be easy, right. So that's about scalability. Reusability is again whenever you follow OCP, given everything is very like uh, with couple of examples that we took, right, we were trying to have the base of something and then implement features on top of it, right. So it's like we were building the building blocks that can be used to implement any new feature. So जब भी आपके पास building blocks होंगे, right, you have some basic building blocks, they can be reused across, right. So that's when this reusability is comes into the picture, right. There are few more that we discussed in even single responsibility principle. Collaboration, given the code is very like segregated, collaboration would become easy. Reduced risk, we already discussed it in when we were discussing the maintainability, but again this is another point. And there is one more point, which is about whenever you follow OCP, it can lead you to certain design patterns that I'm not going in depth. One is strategy design pattern, and then factory design pattern is something which is very much inspired from OCP, right. So that we will be discussing later in this series. But yeah, this is about the benefits of the OCP. Thanks for watching.